Get ready. Starting June 7th, an activation begins. One that has the potential to reshape the inner architecture of your personal power. Mars enters Leo and immediately aligns with Ketu, the south lunar node, an influence that doesn't delay or negotiate. This conjunction doesn't demand effort, but it does demand clarity. Not clarity for others, clarity with yourself. In these days, the atmosphere begins to shift. It's as if the background noise fades and the essential signal rises to the surface. Everything you used to postpone, tolerate, or overlook suddenly steps forward. You can no longer ignore what drains you from within. The roles you've sustained by habit begin to lose their foundation. And everything that once muted your full resonance starts to crack, slowly but irreversibly. Not through conflict, but through a piercing honesty that can no longer be silenced. Mars activates the heart, Ketu purifies karmic residue, Leo demands authenticity. This triad has no tolerance for compromise. If you are still living inside half-spoken truths, still enduring what's familiar out of politeness, or clinging to what no longer warms your soul, prepare yourself. The space around you will no longer support what you have long outgrown. Connections forged in silence may burn away. Goals you never truly wanted will dissolve. Desires rooted in fear will fade like mist. And none of this is happening because you're being left behind. It's happening because you're no longer where you used to be. You just haven't fully admitted it to yourself yet. Why now? Why do some feel a sudden surge of energy these days, as if their power is awakening, while others feel suspended in a void, with nothing left to hold on to? I'll speak more about that soon. But for now, this is the most important thing. In the coming days, your power will either awaken or remain locked, and it won't be left to chance. It will be decided by one inner act, one only you can take, and only now. When the fire of Mars meets the void of Ketu, it does not give birth to a storm. It gives birth to purification, not destructive, but inevitable. Mars is strength, determination, and the will to act without asking if you're ready. Ketu is the point of zero, where everything false, borrowed, or imposed becomes impossible to sustain. And when they meet in Leo, the sign of will, dignity, and heart-centered truth, a process begins that cannot be stopped. It can only be moved through. The energy of these days doesn't arrive as a flash. It's more like a sky, thickening with heat until the very air begins to melt. Not a storm of emotion, but a steady burn that evaporates everything not aligned with your center. Everything you've worn as a role, carried as a habit, or maintained out of fear begins to dissolve. Not suddenly, not loudly, but with the precision of a surgical beam. Leo is the sign of the center. It governs the place within you from which choices arise, where action begins, and where expression becomes real. It's where the heart and will merge into one. When Mars enters Leo, it amplifies the pulse of life. It awakens an inner fire that refuses to tolerate pretense. But Ketu adds another element to this fire: emptiness. Not destruction for destruction's sake, but liberation for the sake of truth. This is a moment when your sense of self is tested for authenticity. Everything you've created out of the need to be liked, to be convenient, to avoid conflict, can no longer hold. The space around you begins to see through the surface. You can try to keep performing, keep wearing the mask, keep repeating the lines. But the stage has already been dismantled. The props are gone. The energy no longer supports anything that isn't rooted in essence. In days like these, the inner knowing becomes acute. You simply can't keep being someone you're not. Words spoken out of politeness get stuck in your throat. Actions driven by duty exhaust you before they even begin. People with whom you've hidden your truth begin to drift away for no apparent reason. Anything built on compromise starts to crumble. This is not punishment. It's a meeting with reality, cleansed of embellishment. Ketu dissolves illusions. It doesn't destroy what is alive. It erases what is already dead, but still breathing through your energy alone. That's why you might feel strange sensations, emptiness, irritation, a drop in energy. But this isn't collapse, it's release. The space around you is peeling away layers until only the real remains. And it's here that inner resistance often rises, because human nature clings to structure, even when it's no longer alive. To relationships that deplete, but feel familiar. To goals that no longer inspire, but look good on paper. But under this cosmic configuration, hiding is no longer an option. Leo demands clarity. Mars demands courage. Ketu demands the emptiness that makes room for the new. If you continue to agree to what no longer resonates, the universe will begin to clear the path for you. Even if you're still grasping at the edges of the familiar, anything not sincerely nourished by your energy will begin to fall away. Not as catastrophe, but as inevitability. You may feel many things slipping away. Desires that once felt urgent begin to vanish. Connections without warmth disintegrate. Your energy fades for things that once sparked excitement. This is not loss, it is purification. And the less you resist it, the more clearly what is meant to remain will emerge. The fire of Mars activates your power. The void of Ketu removes all that is inauthentic. And Leo gathers you into your center, so you can finally see who you are becoming, once everything unnecessary has been stripped away. Sometimes it feels like everything is falling apart for no reason, like events are slipping out of your hands, and the familiar anchors, relationships, goals, titles, begin to disappear one by one. But Ketu doesn't erase what is real. It only clears away what was held together by illusion, by fear, by the deep-rooted belief that if you let go, you'll be left with nothing. This is not loss. This is revelation. You haven't been left unprotected. You've been stripped of the layers that were only pretending to protect you. And now, the universe asks, can you stand, even when there's nothing left to lean on? Even when the roles are gone, the connections are quiet, the compass has vanished? While you were clinging to the past, it was still holding on to you. But the moment Ketu activates, everything that is not aligned with your truth stops receiving support. What used to function by inertia now stops working. People no longer hear you on the old frequency. Tasks that once felt essential lose all meaning. Your internal navigation begins to melt, not to collapse, but to be rewritten. And in these moments, the temptation arises to gather the pieces, to repair what's falling apart, to restore what is fading. But what's leaving now is not exiting your life. It's falling off your frequency. If you try to bring it back, it won't hold. Because clinging to illusion means abandoning yourself all over again. Sometimes this comes as a strange silence. The phone stops ringing, conversations go quiet, plans fall through. It's as if the world exhales and leaves you alone with yourself. But this isn't loneliness, it's purification. You're being placed in a space where only you remain. You and whatever is truly yours. Everything else doesn't come. doesn't respond, doesn't find a way through. And there is no punishment in this. It is a profound liberation. Because illusions require energy. They must be fed by expectations, anxieties, the rituals of approval. But truth doesn't demand effort. It doesn't need to be proven. It simply resonates. And to hear that resonance, you must first live through the silence that follows the unraveling. Many fear this pause. They rush to fill it with new plans, urgent desires, noise. But Ketu's energy resists haste. It works like a dissolver. The more you fight it, the deeper it seeps in. Anything built on fear disappears. Anything sustained solely by the need for stability collapses. What remains is only what matches your truth. If someone walks away in these days, it's not random. If a project crumbles, it's not failure. It's a release of energy. If a plan falls apart, it wasn't made for the version of you that's now emerging. Don't rush to fix everything. Allow yourself not to know what's next. Let go of the urge to chase clarity. And instead, stand in the space where nothing artificial holds anymore. It is in that emptiness that true strength begins to surface, but not the kind measured by action, the kind felt as unshakable presence, the strength to be yourself, without evidence, without validation, because true stability isn't built on what supports you from the outside. It's born when you no longer feel the need to cling to anything that doesn't reflect who you are becoming. Illusion rarely exits gently. It may leave behind echoes, grief, unease, a sense of loss. But these are not traces of something precious gone. They are the aftershocks of detox, of unlearning, of releasing what was never truly yours. What once felt like safety was often just the past dressed up as comfort. And if, in this moment, you can resist the pull to run back, if you can refrain from gathering the ruins, if you can stand where everything false has fallen away, then something new will begin to sound. Effortless, clean, unmasked, and undeniably yours. Remember how I said at the beginning that everything hinges on one interaction? The one that can't be postponed, handed off to someone else, or done halfway? It's time to name it. It's not a step forward. It's not a choice to follow a new path. It's letting go. This is the key that activates everything else. Not external effort, not striving, not a desperate attempt to fix what's broken, but a simple, powerful agreement to stop holding on to what's been holding you. The energy of these days isn't about struggle. It's not even about choosing. It's about maturity, the inner readiness to unclench your fist. The one still gripping the past, old relationships, outdated versions of yourself, expired dreams, or other people's expectations. All the things that once felt safe but haven't truly inspired you in a long time. When Ketu resonates with Mars, it doesn't ask for action. It asks for clarity. And if you still feel tension inside, that's the sign you're holding on to someone, to something, to a story about yourself that no longer fits who you are. And here's the paradox. The tighter the grip, the deeper the block. Energy doesn't flow where fear is in control. The universe doesn't support what you're keeping alive out of duty, guilt, or habit. Ketu clears away everything built on compromise with your own soul. And it does so with precision, relentless but exact. When you release with honesty, it can feel like everything is falling apart. But what's actually breaking is the fixation, the tension, the illusion of control. And with that break comes the opening. Where there was once a wall, energy begins to move. Where things had stagnated, a pulse reawakens. Not because you made the right move, but because you stopped resisting the natural flow. Letting go is not passivity. It is the highest form of trust in yourself. It's when your vibration speaks louder than your words. I no longer need to pretend this is mine. And that kind of truth activates strength, not instantly, but undeniably. We often confuse strength with holding on. We think resilience means never giving up. But in these times, resilience means something else entirely. It sounds like the willingness to make space for what's next, even if you don't yet know what will come to fill it. It's the courage to leave behind an old identity without a backup plan, simply because you know, in your body, that it no longer lives. And this is where the shift begins. Everything that once felt like loss begins to feel like relief. What you feared was leaving you becomes a resource returned. What you are terrified to release reveals itself as a doorway. And behind the door is your true power. Not the kind that fights, but the kind that no longer needs defending. The kind that flows naturally once you stop choking it. Letting go is the action. It doesn't need an audience. It doesn't need ceremony. Only your quiet inner readiness. And when that readiness is real, everything changes. You don't gain strength. You simply stop getting in the way of the strength that was always trying to reach you. When you remove all that's unnecessary, what emerges is not emptiness, it's essence. Not because the universe suddenly changes, but because you finally stop drowning yourself out in other people's noise. This isn't magic. It's the natural intelligence of purification. The moment you stop holding on to what pulls you away from yourself, reality begins to sound different, clearer, louder, more precise. Mars gives the impulse. Ketu severs. Leo brings you back to your heart. This configuration doesn't act on the surface. It works at the core. Here, you can't hide behind a role. It's not about what you say. It's about what you stand on. Everything that cannot withstand the frequency of truth simply stops resonating. Not because something is being taken from you, but because you are no longer, even unconsciously, willing to uphold it. The power of these days doesn't reveal itself through effort. It shows up through alignment, precise, timely, and irreversible. It's the moment when you stop struggling to find your place in life and start aligning with the life that requires your authenticity. Tension won't work here. Old strategies won't activate. Only one thing carries real power now: your inner coherence. Sometimes it begins with something small. The urge to stay silent where you used to force a conversation. The absence of a response where you once felt obligated. A weariness toward things that once inspired you. These are signals. Cleansing doesn't always happen through chaos. It happens through microshifts. And the moment you start noticing them, you're already tuning in. Want to hear yourself? Remove the excess. Want to reclaim your energy? Unclench your fists. Want to rise to your real level? Let go of the habits that no longer serve you. These days call for one simple practice. No rituals, no visualizations, just you and truth. Sit in silence. Recall all the actions you take out of habit, the people you engage with out of politeness, the obligations you keep fulfilling, even though they've long lost meaning. And for each one, ask yourself, what remains of me if I release this? If the answer is more clarity, more calm, more of yourself, then it's worth letting go, even if it feels uncomfortable at first. To remove something doesn't mean to destroy it. It means giving yourself a chance to see, out of everything surrounding you, what is actually yours, what nourishes and what drains, what gives life and what merely fills the void. And when you begin to tell the difference, without anger, without urgency, without guilt, the space around you will respond, maybe not instantly, but with a precision that leaves no room for coincidence. Because strength is not about proving your worth. True strength is the level of resonance where you no longer seek external confirmation. No permission, no promises, no conditions. Deletion is not loss. It's the final tuning before your real signal turns on. And everything that remains afterward, that is you. Without the noise, without distortion, without background interference, just you and your clear, undiluted frequency. And it's to that frequency that everything truly meant for you begins to gather. These days don't ask for proof. They don't call you to be heroic. They simply begin to peel everything away, layer by layer, not to punish you, but to reveal what was always there, your strength. Only now is there finally enough space for it to emerge. There's no need to rush, no need to fix anything. All the space is asking for now is your inner consent to be yourself. Without the mask, without the role you played to gain approval, without the goals that no longer feel like yours, without the connections where you no longer feel heard. If even for a moment you've paused, looked inward with honesty, and recognized it's time to release what no longer nourishes, no longer supports, no longer inspires, then you've already taken the most important step. You've opened a gateway to yourself, to your real power, to the possibilities that couldn't come before because you were too busy holding on to the past. True strength doesn't arrive through noise. It becomes audible in stillness. So if things feel quieter right now, it's not a loss, it's a recalibration. If things feel strange, it's a shift. If something important has left, it means space just opened for what's real to arrive. And no, this doesn't mean everything will change overnight. But from this moment on, you're no longer standing in the way of your own power's breath. And that means it will begin to grow. Not because you forced it, but because you finally released what's been blocking the expression of your true nature. Everything that happens next will come from an entirely different place, without strain, without resistance, without excess, from the frequency where you no longer agree to be anything less than who you truly are.